Welcome to Conversations in Anarchy. This is Catherine Bleich, and I am so excited to be here for another amazing episode. Today is going to be delightful. I'm so excited. I am helping to co-produce this year's Anarchapulco. I oversee all things health and wellness. This is my domain, and that is why I am so excited about our guest today, because we are going to be talking about things that involve emotional, spiritual, relational health. It's all interconnected. We do this conversation here so that we can connect with each other before Anarchapulco. It's a really great experience to get together with the tribe in person. We love it, but I have fallen in love with getting together with the tribe here every Tuesday online. Hey, Danny, thanks for joining us again. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. I really feel like y'all have become family to us. Joel, hi, welcome from Delaware. Right where you're from in the comments. We love hearing from you. As always, I am joined by two of my favorite people, our co-hosts here on the show, Angel and David, who are also a part of Anarchapulco. Angel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, yeah. Thank you, Catherine. You are also one of my favorite anarchists. So inspiring. I am Angel Robinson. I am co-producing Be Free Your Family Camp this year with David. I'm an anarchist. I'm an event planner. I am a lover of people and things and plants and animals and the planet and you and you and you and you. And I'm super excited, as always, to be here and chatting with you guys and inviting some of the best people on the planet to engage in conversation that grows us as a community and as individuals. Yeah?
Right. Hi there, everyone. My name is David.
Go ahead, David.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited to be talking about freedom with all you guys. You know, this is the 6th year we've been holding this conference. I've been fortunate enough to see in the very beginning, to see how it's expanding and growing. And guess what? Voluntary solutions is an actual solution. Like I say, voluntary relationship is a solution to the coercion that we see on planet Earth. So I'm co-producing the family camp stage, running a talent show, and just love freedom. I'm a principal of a private school. I do accelerated graduations and do homeschool consulting and do whatever I can to get these kids out of the state, indoctrination camps for 12 years, and empower themselves so they can pursue their dreams and help parents and just facilitate freedom in any way that I can. And we're talking about peaceful relationships today. So I'm really excited to see how this unfolds.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, both David and Angel, for everything you're doing for the next generation, for the freedom babies. We need to raise them sovereign so that we can create a sovereign world, right? I really think that freedom and sovereignty starts at home. So thank you guys for everything that you're doing. My kids love Anarchapulco. Anarchapulco is a really fantastic place. And, you know, more so than starting at home, I think freedom starts within yourself, this body home, this flesh suit that we wear. And I hinted earlier, we have a fantastic guest today. We have been shifting up the format for the last 4 weeks of Conversations in Anarchy. Normally, we pick a topic and we have a little round table and then we bring in the audience. But what we're doing during these last 4 weeks is we're bringing on one of our beloved speakers. And this week we have Becca, I'm going to say it wrong because I practice it, Tzigany.
You got it right.
Nailed it. Okay, awesome. Becca is amazing, okay? Becca has been helping us with mediation for some things. Inevitably, there's conflict in life, right? Becca is an amazing communicator, an amazing facilitator of conversation, bringing people together who maybe started off over here, finding a way to come together so you can see the humanity in one another. She is an author, a breathwork educator, which is something that Angel and I were just talking about today. I had a really good experience at last year's Anarchapulco with Sean Stone and his holotropic breathwork. So anyway, I am so excited that you are going to be here today, Becca, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, and then I'm going to go over kind of the ground rules for our little episode here. So please welcome and introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. Morning, afternoon, depending on where you are. I am Becca Tzigany. I'm author of the book, Venus and Her Lover, Transforming Myth, Sexuality, and Ourselves. And of course, I couldn't write such a book unless I had to transform myself and my own myth and my own sexuality. So I got to be an authority. I got to gain through experience And all the experience I got over 20 years, which went into this book, and the adventures my partner and I had around the world, led me to now I work as a therapist, a counselor, mainly because people just kept coming to me for advice, because I've been studying this relationship concept, like, why can't we get along? And one of the themes of the book is what happened to men and women, what started the war between the sexes, which I actually reveal that like a detective story through the course of the book. I live in Ecuador. I am a community organizer. I've been an environmentalist, a doula, a homeschooler. So I fall squarely in the camp of we are all sovereign beings, and it's up to us to claim that sovereignty and evolve ourselves so that we can show up in this world.
Beautiful. I really appreciate you sharing about your personal evolution and how this is something that you had to learn yourself, because that is this year's theme, evolve. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what we are coming together to do. You can see it in David's picture. For me, he's right below me on the grid. I don't know where he is on your screen, but evolve, that's our theme. That is what we are trying to do. We are not trying to revolve. We don't want a revolution. We don't want to go in a circle and end up back where we started. We're going somewhere new. We are tackling uncharted territory right here. And for me, it's inside this domain. And that is why I'm really excited to have Becca here, because she really, I think, is a great inspiration when it comes to the world of self-exploration. So I'm going to go over a couple ground rules here. As I said, we changed the format a little bit. This is an informal gathering. We love to hear from you. We love it. So if you have questions or comments, please type them in the comment section on Zoom. We've got moderators watching all of our other social media, which, by the way, welcome DLive, welcome Twitter, welcome Twitch, welcome Facebook. Hi. Thank you for joining us. We do have people watching the comments on there, so feel free to talk as the video is going through. Announce where you're from. If you missed the introduction, we'd love to hear where you are in the world. I've seen Ecuador, Belize, Acapulco, Texas, Delaware. I've seen some things popping up on the screen. So be sure to share where you are from. Now, I'm looking at the screen, and if you're in Zoom, there's a raise your hand function, and that's great if you have a question, which we're going to open the floor for later. You can also leave a comment in the chat box, which myself or Angel or one of our moderators or David will notice, and we'll call you on so that you can have a conversation with Becca and the rest of us. So with that being said, we have created this space so that we can communicate with you. And it is really important. Hi, Simone, Guatemala. It is really important to us that this is a brave and safe space. We don't want anyone feeling like they can't express themselves, but when you are, we just ask that you be mindful that people come from all over the planet to join us here. I see Lou from Germany. We have a very diverse set of backgrounds, and we practice nonviolent communication. So keep that in mind as you communicate. Sometimes we're tackling some pretty radical topics. You scroll through our previous episodes, and so far, I think we have nailed it on the communication front. Becca, you would be so proud of this group, this community. They really prioritize each other and honor each other. Jay from the Mid-Atlantic, hello, welcome, welcome. Dirty South, says Jay. Okay, so we like to keep these meetings to an hour unless they are so full of energy that we roll right on through, but we're not going to cap it over 2. So with that being said, if there's something that you want to chime in with, chime in. Let us hear. Leave a comment. Turn on your camera if you're in the Zoom. We love to see your face. There's no obligation, but it really makes it feel more like a family, and it's going to help us to find each other when we're at Anarchapulco. I can't wait to have a big Conversations in Anarchy. Hug. Hello. I hope someone's meeting me at the coffee chat on the first day so we can brace each other and have a joyful, delightful reunion of the online digital tribe. It's going to be fantastical. So with that being said, our purpose is to create community, to honor one another. We're going to talk about some key points. Specifically, Becca is going to be presenting today. And then we're going to open up the floor for a dialogue, for a conversation. As I mentioned, indicate in the chat if you have a question. Use that raise your hand function because it stays up on the screen, and it's really easy for those of us who are co-hosting this show to see who has a question. Say hello, tell us where you're from. Don't worry about being shy. You don't have to turn your camera on. You can just listen, and that's okay too. We honor that. Join us as you are. We welcome you. Again, nonviolent communication, and most importantly, we have a little read-along that we like to use, and it's our ebook called Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy. David and Angel and Evan put so much time and energy into this. We're diverging from it here a little bit as we change our format, but this is a really excellent tool that you can download at anarchapulco.com. You can share with your friends and family. You can use it as a refresher on the basics of anarchy yourself, and it's a really great conversation starter, which is kind of how this whole Conversations in Anarchy series, here's my dog, sorry, it's shaking off. Here I am, the Bitcoin boss. It's my house, and there, we're all at home together right now. So, excuse any distractions. So with that being said, Becca, welcome. We are really excited to hear from you today. I understand that you have put together some thoughts for us, and I would like to open the floor to you so that you can begin the process of sharing.
Very good. Thank you very much. And a big shout out to everyone that's here, because obviously you wouldn't be here if this weren't important for you to be your best self. And I love the theme, Evolve, because we got to do it, like that bumper sticker says, evolve or die. And really on the planet right now, it's about that time. So I'm so happy to be part of Anarchapulco. I'm happy to be part of the Love and Healing Committee, because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we practice being a new human. Because in terms of relationship, in terms of communication, we were never educated in relationship skills. And what are those skills? Well, I'm going to name them, and then I'm going to talk about most of them. The first one is self-love. I don't know how you all have come up in your unfolding process, but I know that I spent many years looking in the mirror saying, you're okay. You're really okay. And it hit me one day, like, why do I have to tell myself I'm okay? Because the message I got my whole life was I'm not okay. So many of us are in self-healing practices. Many of us do different spiritual practices because we've got to heal all the wounds that we received in a rough system. Another relationship skill is EQ, which is emotional intelligence. Like there's IQ for your brain, there's EQ for the heart. And we live in a society that really overemphasizes the mental. Of course, we need to be mental. We need to use our intellect. We need to be able to discern. We need to be logical, all those things. In our education system, however, it's pretty much at the expense of our emotional intelligence. So I'm going to talk a bit about that. I think it's very important. Another relationship skill is listening. Most of us didn't get any training in that, and that's why I love to teach communication skills and NVC, nonviolent communication, because listening is the cornerstone of that. Then there's communicating. Knowing how to communicate means we have to be able to identify our own emotions and our own feelings and our own opinions about things, and know how to deliver that information in a way that isn't at the expense of others. Another relationship skill is what I call relational reality. It's actually knowing that we live in relationship with others and with our environment. Now, this just seems as obvious, right, as the sun shining in during the daytime. But the way our society has progressed has been at the expense of others and our environment, as if they don't exist, as if we personally can live in a vacuum. And so knowing where we're placed in the cosmos is very important, and to know that we are living within a web of life. We aren't dictating how nature runs or how the web of life is supposed to work. And that's because we were raised with the concept of separation. Especially Americans were raised with this idea we must be fiercely independent and self-sufficient. Of course, I agree, we have to be self-sufficient and we have to know independence. But we went way overboard with that. Like, it's a dog-eat-dog world. You've got to compete instead of cooperate. It's every man for himself. These ideas are instilled in our educational system. I'm sure David has some strong opinions about that because it's criminal. It produces criminals. And the idea that we are an island, that we are separate, that no one cares about me as an individual, and I don't have time to care about others, or I don't have the energy, is inherent in our society. It's a hyper-developed principle of agency. And this could be called the masculine principle, or the principle of yang, which emphasizes autonomy, rights, self-preservation. In fact, I want to share my screen. I often teach about gender relations, and so I have a graphic that I would like to share about the principles of communion and agency. Can everyone see that? Is that showing on the screen?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to focus on the yang, the masculine. And by the way, all these qualities in Black, we all should have, men and women. So when I talk about the hyper-developed principle of agency, it can happen in men or women. But the reason some people call what we live in a patriarchy, not my favorite term, but it's because it's overemphasizing so-called masculine values. So there's hardness versus softness, expansion versus contraction, up versus down. But here, this idea of autonomy at the expense of a relationship. A healthy person knows how to have autonomy, sovereignty, as well as relationship. The yang principle focuses on self-preservation, obviously important. We have to feed ourselves, take care of ourselves, do our exercise, and so forth, but not at the expense of species preservation. The feminine, the Mother Earth principle, is about taking care of all species. The masculine principle emphasizes personhood. The feminine principle emphasizes community. The masculine principle emphasizes rights, because we have rights. We have sovereign rights that we can claim. And with those comes responsibilities. The masculine is skills, the feminine is instinct, masculine focus on doing, feminine focus on being. And these words in red are when these principles go into pathology, or we could call the immature masculine will sever networks, because a man can be an island and on his own. The pathology on the feminine side is fusion with others. She sacrifices everything for her children, for her husband, whatever. Though fusion, of course, can happen with males or females. Another pathology in the masculine is fear of relationship, and which I get people in my counseling practice around that. And the feminine pathology is fear of independence. So I just thought I'd throw up that chart so you could see clearly the differences that are societal. Well, I mean, yang and yin and yang are in nature. And I dare say, most of us were socialized in a system that overemphasized yang principles. So that's gives us a little orientation of where we came from. And this patriarchal idea, the reason I don't like to use the word patriarchy, even though it's an overemphasis of male, so-called masculine yang values, is that it's been used as an excuse for women in particular to bash men. Like, this patriarchy is all men's fault, and we women have been the victims, and we've got to climb up through feminism and, assert our rights. Now, I was a first wave feminist. I marched for the ERA in the 70s. So, of course, I'm for equal rights, and I'm for equal responsibilities. But I prefer the term dominator system because what we've been socialized through, we were all born into a system of domination and control. And just like Neo in the Matrix, when Morpheus is having that talk with him and saying, you were born into slavery, you were born into a system of control. What is the Matrix? A system of control. And many of us refer to the state as a system of control because it is, and a system of coercion. So the dominator system is based on force or the threat of force. And how many of us here were spanked as children? So we were raised with violence, those of us who were spanked, or we may have gotten emotional violence or coercion one way or another, because that's part of the dominator system. So the dominator system works in religious institutions. It works in governmental institutions. I mean, the government is who has its military arm, its police arm, so that it can coerce you to do what you won't voluntarily do. And the tactics of domination, and those all come into the family. So in a traditional family, the father's the head of the household, or if he's not, the mother may not be titular head, but she will then operate through manipulation. But it's all about coercion. The dominator system wants to get you to do whatever its goals are, and never mind you doing yours, much less finding out what your goals are. So in relationship, when people come together in relationship, whether it's husband, wife, man, woman, woman, there are these dynamics that we were raised with. The dominator system says you can use intimidation, bullying, or you can be the victim, you can withdraw, you can blame, you can shame, you can be abusive with your anger. These are all unhealthy ways that we were either raised we were raised either in our families or we were educated in the educational system. And of course, the workplace is a little better. I mean, it is a little better because of the advances that have been made about equality in the workplace and so forth. Nonetheless, we have, this is our tool set most of us were given. Now, I'm very happy that in the anarchist community, people are endeavoring to practice nonviolent communication, because just the name tells you that even our communication is violent with the idea of coercing. So as we unlearn these things, the first step that I'm pointing out is we must realize that this is how we were raised. And when we are in relationships, this is our go-to. Or if we're under pressure, there's a crisis in the relationship or stressed out about money or whatever, that will be what our fallback is. And to recognize that in ourselves and have compassion for ourselves and say, wait, I've got to learn a different way. So the first step that I mentioned in relationship skills was self-love, because we all must heal from this system. I refer to it as a trauma-based mind control system. And last year on the main stage in Anarchapulco, I talked about how one of the main tactics is to traumatize children with sexual trauma. And now, of course, pedophilia is being shown the light of day, and all kinds of institutions show, from orphanages to the church to the workplace, have shown that sexual abuse is normal. Sorry to say, but it is, because if you can traumatize children and keep them out of their sexuality, you basically keep them out of the root of their life force. So this takes some healing on our part. It takes some shadow work. It takes seeking out different therapists so that we can free ourselves layer by layer. And I by no means can say I'm completely free. I'm still peeling the layers, and I've been at it for decades. But I can say I'm a lot freer than when I started, coming out of my family upbringing and coming out of, it was in my 20s where I started to wake up. So I've had, 40 years, more than 40 years at this. And you actually make progress, and you actually do get freer. So the theme of evolve, as Kat was clearly pointing out, begins with the self. And part of this, in terms of relationship skills, is to understand that you have a right to your feelings. And you have a responsibility to identify your feelings so that you can communicate them. I'm going to talk a lot about feelings and emotions because, believe it or not, that's what we run on. That's what gets us up in the morning, and that's what wants us to stay in bed when we're feeling down. So knowing about our emotional identity and how feelings run through us and how we judge them, and being able to get clear about them so we can communicate them. It's okay to show up at a meeting and say, wow, I'm feeling kind of sick today, and I'm harried because my boss was hassling me, and I really want to feel better, but I'm feeling kind of vulnerable right now. So, if I cry, please no one take it personally. The more we can have that as a normal kind of conversation, the clearer we get as human beings. And one of my practices that I do when I meet someone, they say, hi, how are you? And I'm like, okay, wait, how am I? Okay. Well, I'm a little groggy, and I'm hoping the coffee will help, and I'm glad to see you. I don't like to say fine because I want to show that I really care about the question they just asked me. Of course, some people might be going, all right already, okay. But so that we can learn that we're human beings that have our ups and downs, and that we're all in this together. Another thing about the self-love practice is that we have a right to justice. We have a right to be treated fairly. So in a relationship, when we're having trouble, when we have a problem, when there's a crisis, each person has a right to be heard and to hopefully be empathized with, so that everyone can be present to co-create a solution, a just solution. So all of this is really talking about self-knowledge. Who are we? So I'd like everyone to do a little exercise. I'm going to just throw some words out there, and I want you to kind of make a checklist. I want to see if you know what your temperament is. So, how are you? What are you like essentially? Are you an extrovert? Are you enthusiastic, active, social, risk-taking? That's one kind of temperament called the sanguine. Or are you an introvert? Are you more analytical and deep feeling and self-reliant, and you could get anxious? Are you a perfectionist on details? Another kind of extrovert is someone who's very goal-oriented and can be dominating or domineering, but can also be a good leader. Could be short-tempered, could be violent. Do you have any of these traits? And then there's another kind of temperament, which is relaxed and quiet, easygoing, can be very sympathetic, can be very private with the emotions. And if that's the way you are, this will be a good practice for you, because I'm, to learn the self-knowledge part is to identify your emotions and be able to share them. So those are just some words I threw out. Who found words that applied to them? Okay,
I found domineering, or I'm very strong-willed. That one resonates. And then when you said being a leader, that's something I think about constantly. Especially in the anarchist community, help to be inspiring. Leadership through inspiration, or inspiring leadership, so that there's communication and connection, and things get accomplished without people feeling diminished or feeling coerced. There's a very tricky thing to that.
Yes. And thank you so much, Jessica, because by recognizing whoa, I just dominated those conversations. Let me look at myself. I really want to inspire. You've already done those steps to recognize what your temperament is, because we're born with a temperament, and it's up to us to up-level it so that it has its highest expression. So instead of being a dominator, you become an inspiring leader, right? Instead of becoming a victim, you become the mediator who can empathize with everybody. So these are all evolutionary steps that we can do. And another part of this exercise, I'd like you all to think about your best friend. And if you want to just shout out or tap into the chat box, what are a few of the qualities of your best friend that you love? Inspiring, sympathetic, enthusiastic, good, honest, open, funny, beautiful, laughter, goal-oriented, analytical, smart. Because our best friends can reflect for us what the direction we want to go. Beautiful. I love watching these. Humble, passionate, dreamer, family man, smart, independent, and bossy. Open-minded, good-natured, observant. Great. Good. These are it seems so simple, but these are the questions that we can reflect upon ourselves, and how we mirror, and how our friends mirror us, and how they contrast with us, just to get to know who we are, so that when we show up in a conflict, we know who we are, and we may know who the person we're in it with, what their characteristics are. Okay, I want to get to emotional intelligence, the EQ. In fact, I thought I should give a workshop on emotions. They're so important. Humans have a vast capacity for emotions. And I want to share my screen again. Because just to give you a sense of our emotional menu, which is huge. Can you see that?
Yes.
This is a wheel of emotions. Move this over. And you'll get a flavor for how this is structured. But the first part of the petals, joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, anticipation, are like basic emotions. And as they go out, they get a little more toward what isn't so healthy. So just take a look at that. Look at this huge capacity that we have. And it seems that humans, at least from what I've heard, in terms of the where we are in the galactic neighborhood, humans are known for this wide menu of emotions, that our emotional structure sets us apart from apparently many other beings in the cosmos, because this is interesting to me. The conscious mind can only process 3 to 4 new pieces of information at a time. And it's due to the limitation of our working memory. We need a new hard drive installed or something. But the unconscious mind is capable of processing millions of bits without getting overwhelmed. So the unconscious mind can be aware of the successes and failures of our entire life or past lives, or it can simultaneously receive information from others or the environment. So the way that the subconscious mind communicates to the conscious mind is through emotions. So we may be receiving, you're hearing my voice, you're receiving, some information by looking at the wheel, 3 to 4 new pieces of information at a time. But your emotions that are running through maybe you're feeling recognition when you read, see some of the colors or the words, or you're feeling unease. These emotions are all telling you something, because as the subconscious mind communicates its wisdom through emotions, we get a gut feeling or we get an intuition. And that's why our emotions are our internal guidance system, and like an early warning system too. So the emotions, the more we can be familiar with them and use them safely, the more slenderous we are as a human being, no? And here is, it's called the Emotional Guidance Scale. And I should give credit. This is from Justine Empowerment Guide. It shows you how the upward spiral can bring us into greater and greater joy. And that when we are feeling down, we can bring ourselves into depression, powerlessness, and victimhood. So the range we have, where our emotions can take us, is what determines our destiny. So the more familiar we are with our emotions, so that we can identify them, so that we can express them in safe ways. In mediation, I don't mind if people are yelling. If I'm mediating a conversation, people can express their emotions, but hey, we're not going to have name calling. We're not going to have, below the belt blows. That's the thing I have to watch out for, because we've all been trained to use our emotions as weapons. But learning how to use our emotions in a safe way for our expression and those of you who like to attend dance, for example, where you can really let your emotion out, or do theater or paint or any of the creative arts, that's something that really celebrates how beautiful emotions are for humans. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. So now I want to get to listening, communication. I'm going to just throw out, because this is we only have limited time. So I'm just going to throw out some basic principles of good communication and good listening. So especially, it's good to remember these when we're in conflict. The first goal is to understand. When you're in conflict, often we want to come up with the solution. I'm going to fix the problem. I know how we can fix this. But that, of course, if the person doesn't agree with your solution, and the person won't even be able to hear your solution if you haven't heard them first. So the first goal is always that of understanding. And that means you have to listen. And that means you've got to ask questions. And the first question would be, who is this sitting in front of me? Who is this other person? Like, what kind of temperament am I dealing with here? So you got to ask questions and notice things like, boy, that really triggered him. So whenever there's a trigger, when I am working in counseling or in mediation, when emotion comes up, that tells me, okay, we're looking at an old wound. We're looking at something that's particularly relevant that needs to be hidden, because otherwise the person would just say, wow, when you say that, it's just like when my father used to yell at me, and that's why I feel so sad. I mean, if somebody is really in touch with their inner workings, that's what they would say. But instead, it often, the trigger happens and the person will say, well, you know, you're not such a good communicator yourself, and if you hadn't done blah, blah, you know, so that doesn't help find any resolution, because the first principle is understand. So questions. And that means the first question would be, what happened? You know, what's your version of events? Because when we have a conflict with someone, we always have our version. And what I've found out in mediation is that generally, and I've been in mediation with like a dozen people where I'm listening to all their perspectives and I'm like, you know what? Everybody's right. But they're right about different things. And some of the things they're right about don't have relevance to the problem. And that's, you know, my job is to try to bring into the fore well, first of all, everyone has to be heard and acknowledged. And then what are the threads that we have to take through to resolution? So when you ask someone what happened, that's when we ask that question, we just shut up and listen. And we'll learn something. And generally, it's like, wow, that wasn't my experience of it, but they heard something I don't even remember that happened. Or they took something way farther than I would have. So that's all information. And as we get into NVC, learning nonviolent communication, one of the first talents you get to develop is how to state facts, indisputable facts. So it's not like when you came in the room and started throwing your weight around like some asshole. Those aren't facts. What the fact is when you came in the room and slammed the door and were stomping your feet, I felt scared because it seemed to me your anger might hurt me. Now there's facts. So the first thing in NVC, which we're going to get to in a minute, is like what a journalist used to be, was just the facts, ma'am. You know, the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, how. To be able to, because you need to agree in a dispute. Everyone needs to agree on the facts. On Friday at 3:00, we had agreed to meet at 3:00, and you arrived at 3:30, and you didn't call, but now you tell me that you did call, and I see my phone was off, you know, so that we've got facts that we're working with, and then we take it from there. Another principle of listening, which is especially tricky when we're in a dispute, is to slow down and breathe. And that old adage of shut up and count to 10. And during that counting to 10, you breathe just to get present. Because remember, emotions, the subconscious mind is sending you, it could be rapid fire emotions. And you need a minute to figure out what you're feeling so that you can be present and also keep listening to the person. And so when someone's telling you their story, their version of the story, when they've stopped, you can say, and how did you feel when that happened? And listen. And in that, you can also identify needs. Like, this person obviously needs to be heard, or this person needs to be held, or this person has a real strong idea of what fairness and justice is. So that will help inform you how you're going to respond to the person and your own needs, right? Those are just as important. And even though in a dispute, it's important to stay focused on the facts and in the present moment, what I find comes into play all the time is the past. Consider the past. When I'm counseling couples, what I discover is that most of the relationship arguments are just the same issue recycled. It just keeps coming back and back and back, dressed up in a different way, under different circumstances. And then when I, in my practice, start diving in, I'm looking for things like, can either of you identify similar situations from your childhood? When did you ever feel like this? And what are the triggers? Because generally, because we come out of a trauma-based mind control system, and we were traumatized as children, we have not processed so many of those traumas. And we'll often get in friendships or partnerships that trigger those childhood traumas so that we can keep getting them so that we can evolve. Because if we just stuff them away in our subconscious, they're going to affect us, but we won't be able to change. So relationship, and it can feel like, you're hammering on an anvil, a tool, you're just like, hammering at it. We're really hammering on our liberated selves. But what we got to get out of us we have to find out where those wounds are from our childhood and what our partner or the coworker did to trigger us that gave us this reaction. Okay, so another principle of listening, which I ask people to do all the time, is repeat back what you heard. So if you're in an argument with somebody and they are giving you their tirade, you did this and you did that, and then you say, okay, what I heard you say was, first I was late, and then you got angry, and then there was a missed call, and you were worried about getting dinner in the oven on time, and blah, blah, blah. And then you say, did I get that right? And they'll say, no, you missed the part about my flat tire. Oh, yeah, that's right. And you had a flat tire. So being able to repeat back what you hear and then asking if you got it right immediately engages your partner or your friend or your coworker, because you're clearly making the point that you care about what they feel and what happened. Now you're engaged. Now there's two of you working on a solution. And a last step in listening would be, if the conversation goes well, then you can inquire, like, well, how can we solve this? What are some, let's just make a list of possible resolutions. Do you, and then you could say, well, it would really help me if you would take ownership of your part on this. Or I'd like to ask for forgiveness, or I'd like to apologize, or it'd be great if you could apologize, or you know what, I'd like to take this to a therapist. I'd like to negotiate this or have someone mediate it for us. Or why don't we just agree to disagree? Or why don't we meet Sunday at 4 and let's take a couple days to think of creative solutions, and you bring yours and I'll bring mine. Or, I need a change in behavior from you. Whatever. You can just throw these ideas out, and now you've got an agenda, right, for working toward resolution. And then another step is, of course, a request. Like, could you please promise me that when you're going to be late, you're going to phone me before I leave the house? Or could we please make a time where we can speak calmly about whatever's happening every Thursday evening at 9 or whatever? We can make requests of the other. I'm tempted to go into nonviolent communication, but I'm aware of the time. And I can't teach, or no one can teach nonviolent communication in 10 minutes. So I'm thinking I'm just going to mention, for those of you who don't know what nonviolent communication, I'm just going to mention what it is. And I frankly would like to be teaching this. That's what I think, David, I'm going to be teaching on the Free Your Family stage, communication skills. That's what I'm thinking. Sound good to you?
And or emotions, talking about emotions. Sorry, Becca, to jump in on this, but I just really, when you talk about school, and I think about this all the time, especially having become such a member of the anarchist community, or, a day-to-day liver of it, I feel really cheated that I've been forced to learn all these things that ultimately don't really contribute to my day-to-day life. My day-to-day life is dealing with people and being able to communicate what I'm feeling, and being empathetic to what other people are feeling. And not to sound so kumbaya, but I almost feel like really, if we were to go to school, if we were to use that word, it should be sitting around and talking about how to be able to communicate yourself and to be empathetic to other people, and how to create these peaceful resolutions or peaceful relationships, like having clarity in relationships. It's, as an adult now, I see it so much more clearly, and I'm like, but it's so hard to practice now after 40 years of all this, other preconditioned, abuse. And I think about how much more powerful everybody would be, and how much more beautiful life would be if we'd really focused on those things than, quite honestly, studying these stupid wars and idiots from the past. I mean, there's stuff to learn from that. I don't mean to be so derogatory, but when you think about what's really much more important and what's more valuable, it's that. So if you were to teach anything, especially on the family camp, I think it would be practicing communicating your feelings and being empathetic and listening, which I guess is probably part of nonviolent communication.
Yeah, it is. And what I've learned in my process is just what you're saying, Jessica, is that I had to learn how important emotions are. I mean, because I was raised in a family where we just had to stuff it. And that's a great, repression is a doorway into all kinds of illness and psychological problems. And I'm actually pretty excited about this, learning about what our emotional menu is and how we can use it. And the great thing about nonviolent communication is you can say, the first step is observation. The second one is feelings. Like when you came in and slammed the door, I felt afraid because my need for safety was feeling threatened. So with nonviolent communication, you have a right to your feelings and you have a right to your needs, and you can express them. And that's why, like I said, people can yell that at each other. I feel angry. yes, you have a right to that. And you have whatever your good reason is for that. Now let's evolve the emotion, because if when we hold in emotions, they just give us a lot of back pressure until they explode and we vomit our emotions all over somebody. It's healthier to be able to express them in ways that don't threaten another. But our training is how to beat people up with our emotions. So to learn how to express them in a neutral way, and it can be with feeling, of course, but without hurting another. That's so important.
Well, that is another interesting thing, if I may just jump on that for 1 second, is also really understanding that, and the production team of Anarchapulco discusses this quite a bit, is that, you sort of are raised with that adage of like sticks and stones will break my bones, and words will never hurt me. But I don't actually agree with that anymore, because the more I sort of recognize how I've communicated in the past, or how other people have communicated to me, and how that might make me shut down or make me feel hurt or feel threatened or, coerced. It's really sort of powerful to be connected to that understanding too. And I don't think a lot of people are.
Absolutely. And that's why Anarchapulco gives so many opportunities for healing and for us to feel empowered as ourselves, as we are, these evolving beings, and we're all in this together. Now, I've been a community activist for decades, and what I have seen happen time and time again. Now, we have, corporate adversaries and governmental adversaries, but what really screws us up are internal conflicts. And that's how I learned mediation. Nobody trained me. It was because I saw that we were destroying ourselves. So as people intent on bringing in a new paradigm or a voluntarist society or compassionate anarchy or whatever we want to call it, we have to work together. And we can't work together if we get pissed off with each other and dismiss each other. And then, post on Facebook and YouTube attacking one another. Mm-hmm. So this is what is inspiring me to be here on the Love and Healing Committee and be here with the anarchist community, because if we don't learn how to work it out with each other, we won't make it. And Mark Passio on the main stage last year was very clear. That was his message to us too. So now I'd like to open it up for any comments or questions, because I am aware of our time.
So, Becca, I saw that Katerina rose her hand about maybe 10 minutes into your presentation. And so, Katerina, I don't know if you are still on and still have a question, but I did see your hand go up and I didn't want you to get lost in the fold. Moose, I see you on deck. Katerina, are you here? Can you unmute yourself? Well, in the meantime,
she came up there.
I heard you, Katerina. You want to say something? Looks like you're unmuted.
Well, maybe Katerina's having a tech difficulty. Maybe Moose can talk and Katerina can get sorted. Moose, would you like to unmute yourself?
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Oh, yes. Well, first I want to say thank you. The conversation is very interesting, intriguing. So just as you were speaking, I was thinking of different examples and how things work together. Like I made the comments like over analytical. And I know you mentioned like the dance and music and arts, very visual, how people, the range of emotions. What I always found fascinating was kind of the exact opposite, not really the colorful arts, but like the reading and writings. I remember in the past I read a book, like Magicians or something, and I got so upset at the end when the main character cheated on the girl that he had a relationship with that I didn't finish the last chapter of the book, because like the emotions and everything that I got from reading it, but it wasn't like visual, like with dance and everything like that, but that was my comment. I found fascinating. Even to this day, I still haven't finished the last chapter of that book because I was so upset with the main character. I was like, why would you do this? But yes, thank you.
Yes, writing is a powerful art too. Believe me, I'm a writer. Thank you, Moose.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about what Moose just said is I like books that really create like deep feeling in me, and it could be the worst feeling, the most terrible. I like Dostoevsky. It could be the worst, most, and Kafka, right? Like anxiety. But I think in those feelings, I'd learn about myself. I learn about what I value. I learn about what I fear, and that makes me a stronger person and more in control of my feelings. Being able to explore them in that way, I really do think that's probably one of the greatest things about the advent of novels and being able to live an experience without living it. It's really a way to work through emotions. In sort of a disconnected way, right? You get to like put the book down and like, you know, no one's cheating on anyone, right? Or, you know, you get the, there isn't a war, but you still feel it.
Yes. Beautiful.
You know, Becca, it's really interesting because part of the roots of our movement, well, maybe not the roots, but some of the branches have included some segments. They self-declared themselves libertarian brutalists. And these were a group of people that were hailing kind of out of the New Hampshire Free State Project. And they had spun off into this, you know, I have a right to say whatever I want and words can't hurt. And so I'm going to be vulgar and mean. And Lou, I see your hand up. I'm going to be vulgar and mean and vitriolic. And I have a right to do this. And you need to get your emotions out of the way. And I noticed this tendency to sort of demonize emotional responses. And for me, I'm getting to a point where I'm really starting to listen to my emotions, and I'm starting to use them as more of a guidance system, you know. So if I'm feeling angry, like, whoa, what's going on? What, you know, why am I mad? What do I need to change? Right. Because for me, you know, anger tends to mean something's out of alignment. But meanwhile, while you have this group of people saying, well, I'm going to say whatever I want, and it can be harsh and condemning and name calling, and I'm not hurting you, I'm not violating your rights, I'm not aggressing on you, I'm not violating the NAP, the non-aggression principle. But from my understanding, words can actually rewire the brain of not only other people, especially a captive audience like children, but yourself. The way you talk to yourself can structurally rewire your brain. And so I don't know if this is something that you have researched as well, but I was wondering if you could touch on that, because I am a believer that words, and you mentioned this, that words can actually be violent. And I feel like there needs to be a discussion within the anarchist community about the non-aggression principle. And where do words fit into that?
Well, Marshall Rosenberg, who developed nonviolent communication, said just that. Violence is inflicted upon others through our words. And that's why he created a framework where we can safely use words and emotions for expressing ourselves and hearing others that will not be violent. Now, they may be loud, right? They may be full of emotion. And that's another thing that, like in my family, we weren't allowed to show emotion. So the first time I had a boyfriend and he raised his voice at me, I burst into tears. So I had to learn emotions, like, oh, he doesn't hate me. He's not going to hit me with a club. He's just raising his voice. So, yes, that non-aggression principle, there's psychological abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse. And I don't want to be Pollyanna or victim about it, like, oh, don't raise your voice. No, we can express our emotions, but there are aggressive ways to do it, and there's non violent ways to do it, hence nonviolent communication.
Lou, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? And Michael, I see your hand up as well. Sorry if you can hear the loud truck in my in my neighborhood.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, hi.
Yes, nice. Hi. I just want to say thank you to Becca, because I think the first part of the whole conversation was pretty quiet from everybody else, but that was to the reason that you just, I don't know, wrapped it up so great, with examples which fit for everybody. You could see that. Just incredible work you do.
Thank you.
And I wrote a question down at the beginning. Yes, maybe you can go deeper into how and maybe why this diversion of men and women was done over the centuries or even longer. I don't know. Yes,
I could go deeper. I wrote a really big book about it. I'll just say briefly, after 20 years of researching this, and that's why I had to put it in a big book, and I traced it back through history into Earth's hidden or forbidden history, because we can't heal from something we don't know. And I traced it through mythology to where it was ancient Sumer is where I'm identifying it, and I'm not putting a year on it, but I will say that the dominator system, the tactic is divide and conquer. If they could divide men and women, I mean, look, what's the basic unit of society? Father, mother,
that's the basis of all, yeah.
So if you can alienate man and woman, if you can traumatize them as children, so that when they grow up and the biological urge to merge happens, and they get together, but there's still a lack of trust there. And then a child comes in and knows subconsciously, dad doesn't really trust mom and mom doesn't really trust dad. So that is how the dominator culture got seeded into the family, because the family unit is the basis of society. So that's what I explain in my book, how it was done. It was done on purpose, because if you want to control an entire society, you got to grab hold of the family. You've got to dictate the dynamics within a family. And that, according to my opinion, is what has happened. It happened at a particular time in history, and we've been living under this paradigm for millennia, and it's up to us to change it.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you.
Yeah,
good answers.
Pick up my book.
Yes, I'll do that right away.
I mean, because I sent the links to your books to the moderators. I hope they get pasted in there, because I pulled them up on my computer, but I'm streaming over here. So we'll get those posted in the chat for you if it hasn't already, or maybe again, even if it already has. And Michael, I'm going to call on you, but I figured since we're talking about families, David, I was hoping maybe you could chime in on this, because this is really a passionate place for you, and I feel like you're really exerting a lot of leadership in this area. So I thought this would be a really fantastic moment for you to speak up here.
Yeah, no, thank you. And Becca mentioned earlier about the school system, and Jessica mentioned earlier too. I mean, that's one of the reasons I care so much about the children, because they're going through the same programming that we all went through, and that our parents and our grandparents went through, which was to disconnect from ourselves. And Becca, you mentioned breaking up the husband and the wife, or man and woman. That is their agenda, actually. And John Dewey said it, I think it was in the 50s. He said, school teachers are the new high priest, and they're promoting this global state. And, we're going to come in here and make this utopia. Whereas the voluntarist anarchists, we realize there are no perfect humans, but we just don't want this third party coming in here and telling us what to do with our life using coercion. And one thing you said, you said a lot of brilliant things, Becca. One of them was that we have to feel our emotions. And when we repress our emotions, that's when there's a lot of other things happening. And that's what I see when I coach parents on homeschooling. We pull the kids out, and I have a phase called deschooling, where it's like you shake up a bottle of soda, you got to let the cap off and let the power dissipate. And it's kind of like get connected with yourself again. And so when you said, someone says, how are you doing? You're like, how am I doing? And that's a good question to say, like, how am I feeling right now? You know, there is this inner voice and inner dialogue that we have. And as we mature and become more conscious and aware, it's like, really, like, why do I feel like this? You know, sometimes we get angry or bitter or like some weird feeling. You know, I posted something earlier, like there's allegedly over 2,000 words that describe emotions, but the average person, according to this study, only uses about 10 or 12 types of emotions on a weekly basis. So there's this great spectrum we can feel from love and hope and anger and all this stuff, but it's like people stay in the safe zone, and because we never felt safe. We didn't feel safe in schools, we didn't feel safe in church, or parents are going to spank us or whatever it is. It's like, where can we be free so I can say, this is how I feel? And that was so great about the call we had the other day. It's like, this is how I feel. And it's like, well, okay. And then like, how do you feel now? Well, I still feel this way or something. Okay, well, good. Let's hear it out, because it's not wrong to feel anything. What's wrong is to use aggression and threats and these kind of things. And then it's like self-wrong to like not feel it or to numb it. And this is something I noticed about myself, and I'll give it back to your Kat, was like, I went through the school system and I was, you know, still high energy and outgoing, but I was like, angry at the schools and angry. Why are you forcing me? So I partied a lot, you know, and just used a lot of substances, or drank a lot rather, because like all this anger, I didn't know how to deal with it. And so you got to transmute it and put it into something positive. And so that's where I find a lot of energy, like it's freedom, you know, like don't use coercion. This is so exciting. So I just wanted to mention that fact about like not repressing our emotions, especially for the children or for the spouses and the couples. Like, it's okay if you felt jealous or envy, but like, let's talk about what's really going on. You know, the last thing, Becca, was like, the couples are recycling the same issues from decades ago. And I've seen that in my own family. And I've seen this really close family members fighting, and they were fighting about something 15 years ago. And I was like, dang, it's like, is that how humans are? And that's how it is. Unless it gets resolved, it's solved. It's like that scab on your arm. If it's still healing and you rub over it, it hurts. But if it's a healed scab and it's a scar, now we can rub the arm, and it's no longer going to be irritated. So anyways, yeah, this is really great stuff. I'm looking for the family camp stage, Becca, where you share it longer. And so this is really good.
Great.
David,
Thanks.
you know, what you were just saying there about, I mean, piggybacking off of what Becca said about things recycling themselves, it got me thinking about how I do that inside of me. You know, it happens within relationships, but it also happens inside of me. And this is something I'm really working on right now in my personal growth and my personal development, is finding these repetitive cycles and really owning them. And, you know, not feeling the need to necessarily obsess over them or harp over them, but just sort of like, you know what? That happened. And wow, look at how much I've been able to learn from this. And this is something that my partner has actually taught me, is how to be so grateful for these negative experiences and to quit complaining about them, because ultimately bad things happen to everybody, right? They happen to every human being. That is the nature of being human. And if we want to keep reliving them over and over and over and over and over and over and over, it's going to affect our relationships. It's going to affect our personal health. I saw my health spiral out of control this past year, and it's all because of emotional stuff I was experiencing. And really, I think the last month of 2019 and right now here in 2020, I can see myself in a whole new way, and I'm finding myself communicating differently. And there's someone that I'm experiencing a lot of conflict with, and that I had a conversation with yesterday, and they're like, well, what's different? We've already done this. And I'm like, I am. And I legitimately sat there and listened to this person list off, you, wrong with you, you did this, past, current, whatever. And I was just like, wow, you totally have a right to feel that way. And I understand why you're upset. And I meant it. And that is new for me. And so I can see how ending these cycles and this need to defend ourselves and this need to blame others and really like kind of owning our own process, that can transform our relationships, not just in romantic relationships, but with our children, with our coworkers, with our friends, like wherever these things are manifesting. So anyway, I just wanted to piggyback on that. Mike, I know you've been waiting patiently. So if you want to unmute yourself and make your comment or question, please join us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hello, everybody. And I want to say much love and respect to Becca. She's been really, since we got to know her, and I just want to say thank you so much for your commitment to our community, and certainly commitment to Anarchapulco, because you're a exceptional addition. And I also want to recognize Johnny. I see Johnny's back there as well, another speaker, and another one that is really kind of building our resilience of our emotional and psychological understanding and ability. But the question I've got is in regard to, when other people trigger us and get us angry, and I think Carl Jung might have mentioned this, is that most of the time those things that get them angry are actually things about ourselves that are kind of reflections. And so it's usually likely that the people that are the angriest towards each other are usually the ones that are the most alike. I'd just like to know what you think about that comment.
Yeah, in fact, the work of Byron Katie, it's called The Work, is she has it's called a turnaround, where like you want to say, that guy, he's always, he's arrogant and selfish and, bugs the shit out of me. So you turn that around and say, I am arrogant and selfish and bug the shit out of me. So she has like 4 different ways you turn around a comment, because when there's a trigger, because what if someone yelled at you with full force anger and said, you are a worthy human being because you have blue eyes? You'd go, yeah, so, right? It wouldn't bother you at all. I have blue eyes, so what? But if they say something that triggers you, then there must be something inside there, right? Or else you just let the comment go. So for me, triggers, I'm always looking for triggers within myself, within others, because that's like a flashing arrow pointing at the work that needs to be done, or in the case of another person, a way that I can empathize with that person, because if they're reacting strongly to something, then there's something from their childhood or something, inside them that's hurting. Usually a trigger is a reflection of a wound. And we're all wounded. We're all wounded in a trauma-based mind control system. So that helps us have empathy and compassion for one another. So Mike, exactly right. That's how it works.
Yeah, I think this is a good opportunity because I was thinking about this when you guys mentioned it, when you mentioned the brutalism, and I really want to provide a little bit of counterpoint, and I'm not even sure if it's that, because I agree with you generally, but I do think it's important to make the distinction between actual violence, which is a state that someone puts you in, and you really do lose control over that relationship, over that state of existence, and someone being mean to you. You have a lot more control over how that affects you. And I know we're all in different places, but I think what we should be encouraging, there's a duality, right? In the one instance is that if someone is saying something to you, like you said, if you're triggered, that's not about them. They are not the cause of your emotions. They are not the problem. That's a different problem, and that's a problem for them. You and how you feel about what someone is saying, how you're letting them move you emotionally is really, really the problem. And it's significantly different than someone punching you in the face or robbing you, stealing your money, or anything like that. So, and when you talk about the brutalists, I definitely disagree with the way that they tend to operate. I think it's defensiveness. I think they have issues that they have to work out within themselves. They live in a society where maybe they need to feel this rebellion and to say things. But I think for all of us, the thing that we really need to be doing is focusing inward, as everyone's been saying here, and learning how to own who we are, how we feel. And that's what nonviolent communication is all about too. That's my favorite thing about nonviolent communication, because I think more than communicating outward. It's about communicating inward. It's about going. So when you do those things and you say, here's what happened and here's how I feel, you're not saying you made me feel this way. You're saying, I feel angry. I feel hurt. I feel sad. My needs for security aren't met. And it's really about discovering who you are. And something about saying that and knowing it makes it really easy to disconnect the anger or whatever emotions toward the other person and to move into the spaces where you get your needs met. And so I think that's really where we need to be in terms of our anarchist community, but the world at large. And then all that other stuff, like the brutalist anarchist, this just becomes noise.
Mm-hmm. Angel, I completely agree with you. And I'm so excited, Becca, that you brought up the work. And here's why. Because I've been doing it once a week with my friends Nova and Naja. They're both going to be at Anarchapulco. Nova is speaking on the main stage this year about, she had a medical kidnapping of her children through CPS. She got them back. She fought the state. She won. She sued them big. It was awesome. And it's a big victory. And this year we drove to an event together called Rethinking Everything, and we listened to this book by Byron Katie called Loving What Is. And she has this process. It's a worksheet, and it's called, I see Dupree, I see you, hand raised, I'll call on you in a second. She has this worksheet called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, okay? And so we were driving to Rethinking Everything. We listened to this audiobook, and Nova and Naja and I, we did the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet while all the kids were sleeping in the back because we drove overnight to Alabama. And we each had someone in our lives that we were experiencing a lot of conflict with, right? And so the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet has you write down these things, you know, like, I think so-and-so is this, and so-and-so shouldn't do that, and so, you know, and you spell these things, these issues that you have with people. And as you know, as you were alluding to, Mike, you project these things. And then as Becca was saying, you go through it, and first you ask yourself, is it true? You know, is it true that so-and-so should not yell at me? Well, maybe that's not true. Maybe they need to yell. Maybe that's how they express, right? And so first you start by sort of dissecting, like, is what I'm putting out there the truth, first and foremost? But then additionally, you go and you do these turnarounds. And so the turnarounds can look like, I should yell, or I shouldn't yell, because often, you know, you might be the one raising your voice because you're yelling back at them, right? But it's like, I'm telling them they shouldn't yell, but I'm yelling. And so there's different ways to turn it around. And then at the very end, she says, I look forward to so-and-so yelling at me again. And the reason for that is because it is giving you the opportunity to go through your triggers, to heal them, to own them. And, you know, and that's why I mentioned with the brutalist and the rewiring of the brain, I think a captive audience is really important when you talk about that. So like little children who have not been taught the skill sets, and adults like us who have not been taught the skill sets, right? When you have a spouse or somebody and you are verbally abusing them, you can rewire their brain. But when you start to learn the tools of self-empowerment and self-healing, you really can turn this stuff around and see it as an opportunity for growth. And I think that's awesome. And so Nova and Naja and I, every Wednesday since August, we've come together and we've done the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet on something in our lives. And all three of us feel like that it is changing the wiring of our brains. We are less reactive. We are more empathetic. And Nova and I were talking about this, especially for her. She feels like she's doing the work in real time. Whereas for me, it takes me sometimes a week or two. I don't have to get on a call with them, but I kind of like, you know, I'm figuring it out on my own. She's at this point where she's doing the work in real time, you know, and she's thinking like, man, you know, my kids shouldn't have talked to me that way. Is that true? Oh no, they're expressing a need. Like, and she can actually do this as she goes, which I think is so cool. So I did send Jessica a link to the Loving What Is by Byron Katie. So look at that in the chat for you guys. I highly recommend it. She reads it on YouTube for free. So if you're an audio book person and you want to listen to the author read it, Loving What Is, the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet is also online for free. You can do it on yourself. You can do it on others. You can do it with someone you work with. I mean, this has just been completely transformational for me. I believe that Dupree had a question. Is that Johnny? If you are able to unmic yourself, welcome and join that. Thank you.
I am, and thank you so much. It's been phenomenal to sit and listen to all of your brilliant minds and all the wisdom being shared everywhere. For me, one of the biggest things that I've read in the last probably 2 years that's helped me with everything that you guys are talking about, and I'm all about building Lego bricks. Like, you can only build something if you've got the proper resources and the proper tools. And one of the most important books I've read so far is called How Emotions Are Made, by a woman named Lisa Feldman Barrett, who has spent probably the better part of more than 2.5 decades doing nothing but emotional research, and now has neuroscience as a background. And she says that one of the number one ways that each of us can do this self-work is by developing what we call emotional granularity, which is our ability to tell the difference between the different shades of color in anger, the different shades of color in sadness, the different shades of color in joy. And being able to actually use and communicate with words this emotional granularity not only gives us the ability to explore the nuance of this unconscious guidance system. Thanks for that brilliant concept and thought, but allows us to then see how these granules play together. So how do they work together? Is there a sequence to them, a context to them? Am I only angry at myself, but in this context? Whereas if I can find the virtue, the value in which I'm adopting that brings about that emotion in that context, then I might be able to find a context that serves me in. For example, anger when I see somebody slap a child, is in my eyes, based on my virtue design, is completely warranted. However, somebody witnessing my anger may not in their mind include that child having been hit in their context. So they don't see it and understand the anger. So for me, it's about context and intention. If you know what the context is and you have an intention behind it, then you can accurately use your intellect, this big neocortex, this big front brain, to actually develop the granularity to determine whether or not that's a thing you like about you. And if you can identify whether or not you like that about yourself, then you can look at somebody else who is acting different in that situation and perhaps find the virtue they're practicing and see the emotional granularity in them. For me, this goes beyond empathy. It goes to proper recognition of the virtues in another being. And when I can recognize their virtues, I might be able to actually glean something from this experience that goes beyond just self-work. And I might be able to understand how to be in relationship, in community better too. So not only do you get to develop a better relationship with yourself, but you also get to understand the words that other people are using. And with my clients, I often find that one of the biggest things they're missing is a word to describe the emotional granularity they are experiencing. And as soon as you can provide that word, a new understanding forms. And with that new understanding, a new way to relate. So I just thought I would hand you guys a Lego brick that you guys might be able to use for building your next Lego Star Destroyer.
Awesome. I'm going to jump in there for a second. I just want to make sure everybody knows that Johnny Dupre is part of our community. He's been a big supporter of Anarchapulco. He's worked with Jeff Berwick for a long time. He spoke last year on the main stage about the work that he's been doing. And then after Anarchapulco 2019, we started to form the Love and Healing Committee, which Becca is on as well, and Johnny is on. And the concept of the Love and Healing Committee was really to, from my own personal experience with Anarchapulco last year, was just seeing a lot of hurt that is in the community. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration, and our design team right now is sort of working on what we're calling like the stages of, I guess, wokeness, or stages of anarchists, and sort of that evolution of like being in the dark and then getting the glimmer of light and then busting it open, but then the realization of like being cheated for so long, like having been so enslaved, creates a lot of anger and like pissed offness and frustration and then sadness. And then sometimes it's also overwhelming to see where you've been, how you've been sort of enslaved, and that there's this whole other world. And then how do you got to sort of, it's like losing your religion. You got to rebuild your world and your functionality in that. And that's sort of all of these things have gone into the work that we're doing this year for Anarchapulco and coming up with the theme of evolve. And so the Love and Healing Committee is really made up of right now, 7 to 9 people who are from our community who work in different aspects of building these Lego bricks in different ways, from the physical frustration you might have to the mental frustrations or mental challenges, spiritual challenges, financial challenges, and really looking at, as anarchists and as humans, as people who feel more aware than the general population, more in touch with our our desires to have rights and freedoms, but may not necessarily have the tools like Becca was talking about when you've been conditioned, like David was talking about, in the school system, in the society that we've been raised in. Our access to tools has been limited, and it's been purposely structured that way to, create a society that is just whatever, manageable or, sort of essentially enslaved. So the Love and Healing Committee, we have a small page about it on our website on anarchapulco.com. It lists Becca and Johnny and Ovens and Luis Fernando Mises, Christoph, Piazza. It shows the members of the team that are working with the community. If you feel like you need any help, you want someone to talk to about anything in regards to these things that we're talking about today, if you want to be more proactive in your evolution, your development, these members have graciously opened themselves up to the community to be access points, and they all have businesses, but there's some capability for some exchange, and then there's some financial exchange. But we've highlighted these wonderful people to be on the site and help us out. So if you have any questions about that or want to be more proactive, and especially with Becca, she's been here today to, give you an insight into the work that she's doing and the knowledge that she has, and her whole her whole life is dedicated to helping share this information with the world, and especially with the anarchist community, so that we can all be conscientious in creating the world that we're all talking about being part of. And it takes each of us to do our part. So thank you, Johnny, for being here and participating, for sharing. And thank you, Becca, for being there. So if you want to, if you need any help, you can reach out to all of these people. They're on the website on anarchapulco.com, Love and Healing Committee, and they have their emails and their points of contact there.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Hey, so I would like to put a call out because it seems like the hands have not been raised very recently. Angel, I see you. So if you guys are feeling inspired to communicate, we have been going for an hour and a half, so we do need to kind of start reaching the wrapping up point with all of our, sort of closing conversations, because we definitely don't want to push it past the 2-hour mark. So I see that Moose has a question. Angel has something. So Moose, I've got you on deck. Angel, you're next. If you guys have something that you want to discuss or a question you want to ask Becca or just bring up for general discussion, please raise your hand or mention it in the comments. If you don't see me acknowledge you either via typing or verbally, then do it again because I missed it. Angel.
So I just want to piggyback off everything that Johnny so eloquently communicated. We've been having, with the production team, conversations about consent, because the whole point of this is to create an environment where we all feel safe and we are interacting with each other in a way that really shows our integrity. And so I'm writing something on consent, and hopefully you guys will check it out on the blog. We should get it posted up maybe by the end of the week. But I'm thinking about consent, and part of it is always being able to express your boundaries, feeling comfortable in doing that. But I think so much of it is also about being empathetic. And Johnny says it in a different way. And I like what he says is the idea of looking at someone's communication or their actions and trying to find the virtue in it. Like, what do they value? What needs are they trying to get met? And so, like, the manifestation of that for you, it might be off-putting. But if you can, like, I like to say, look to like, if you can find the thing in that is beautiful, like maybe you touched me on my shoulder and I don't like to be touched. Maybe you put your arm around me and you didn't ask for my consent, and that I don't feel comfortable with that. But there is a part of me in communicating to you that you're crossing a boundary for me, where I feel like I need to be kind and understand that what you're seeking is connection, and that's okay, and that's beautiful. What you're seeking is human interaction. What you're seeking is physical touch, which makes you feel good. And we just have a miscommunication about when that's okay and if it's okay with me. And so I think if we do that, if we find the virtue, as Johnny was saying, in other people's actions, we can be so much kinder about how we respond to it. And we can really build bridges and create these sorts of environments where people, one, know how to take no's. They know how to put their energy, like direct their energy in the right ways and toward the right people. But we just create this place where it's okay. It's okay to be. It's okay to make mistakes. And we all take care of ourselves.
Well said.
I'm loving that. Becca, did you want to respond?
No, I'm just appreciating.
Yeah, awesome. So, Moose, I saw that you had something to say. If you want to unmute yourself.
Yes, all this talk about communication and everything got me thinking. I've thought about this in the past. In my own transition from military a few years ago, it's kind of a platform because you look forward to these conversations every Tuesday. I find myself in the same thing. A tool I've used, I know it seems silly, is like Discord, because I'm a gamer and a lot of other things. But the question is, I was trying to think of maybe creating my own little Discord channel so that people that we meet over time can game online or communicate and talk. Because when I got out of the military, people that I connected through Discord, I met in real life in the last few years and met friends, whether it was in Texas or in New York or Arizona. But my question is, like, does anybody else think that's a good idea? And it's just something I was thinking about. And talking about communication today made me think about it again.
Do it. Always follow your desire, follow your passion. People will come. People will participate. I'm so excited that you're feeling inspired. I'll join.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Moose. I would say start that Discord. I've been on Discord like once or twice, so I have an account. But like, if you post it here next week and say, hey, you guys want to join us there? Because as you can see, each week we just keep having awesome conversations. Each year we have this event in Anarchapulco. There's other events popping up. Like, we're really on the cutting edge of human evolution. I mean, this stuff that Becca presented, and also take a look at her YouTube presentation from Anarchapulco last year. Really powerful stuff. I mean, this is the consciousness. Like, we don't have to use force. We don't have to name call people. We don't have to demoralize them. We have to connect with us, express, first identify what we're feeling. As Johnny mentioned, what word describes how I feel? Am I angry? Am I sad? Am I frustrated? Am I something else? Because there's all these degrees, and then you can express it to other people. And so your expression, saying, let's start a little Discord and have this communication, I think is wonderful. Absolutely, man, do that. I'm sure you'll get some support here, and you can, put it in the Anarchapulco group or wherever you are. And, the urge that we have when we see like somebody's got to do that, that's kind of our inner self, in my opinion, saying, you got to do it. You got to do it. So I think you got some support here, and we'll all help you. But that's a wonderful idea.
I'm loving it. Okay, so I would like to invite anyone else who has something to say to raise your hand. And I'm going to ask if Angel, David, Becca, maybe in that order, if you all have some sort of final thoughts about our conversation today, some insights, some, whatever it is you're feeling right now, since we're talking about feelings, I'm feeling inspired.
Be kind, be love, and you'll get it in return. And that's it. That's it. Be kind and be love. Yeah.
Beautiful. Absolutely. There's power in simplicity. And as we mentioned, the schools and trauma and things like that, one of the most powerful things is for me to forgive. Like, I forgive my parents. I forgive the state and all these people. I don't want to get locked down in my past. I want to be present here as we are now and try to build something for the future. And I appreciate you, Becca, saying you've been doing it for decades and still working on yourself. So am I. Life is forever. Learning's always happening. And to forgive and to understand that other people are hurting too. When they're angry, that's normally like a sign of unhealed wounds. And so the phrase that I've started to discover in my relationships the last couple of years is like, being human is difficult sometimes. All this emotion, and you don't even know how you feel. But this is where maybe meditation comes in. There's going to be some like Qigong or some other dance, in Anarchapulco. I invite you to come. We're a month away. You can still get a good airfare price. And this is the event of the year. Not only is there consciousness, there's NBC, there's plant medicine, there's family camp stuff, there's beach. There's so many great, empowering, and hopeful activities and good people, like some of the 20 people or so, 50 people online right now. These are good visionary souls, and that's you watching this live and later. So I just want to implore you to come and to forgive if you want, and hope to see you in a month on the beaches of Acapulco.
I'd like to ask a quick question, Becca. In your closing thoughts, maybe, I think a lot of us are action-orientated people. I mean, we love to talk and discuss and have theory, but then there's also sort of action items. So maybe, I don't know if you leave us with maybe 3 things that we should, think about practicing or doing, or if you can give us a little action list of something we should start with, maybe that would be good. Or maybe even if it's one thing, I don't know, but perhaps there's an action item you can give us to start with.
Okay. Every morning when you get up and you go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, whatever, take 1 minute and look in the mirror and say something like, I see you, or I love you, or I know you're doing the best you can, or let's begin today with, I will do my best to embody my best self. In other words, look at the person in the mirror and help that person out. Give some positive encouragement. And another thing I would say, I'm a big believer in a daily practice, because if I didn't have one, I'd be thrown overboard long ago. So another thing I incorporate in my first thing in the morning is I take at least a few minutes breathing. Now, this may sound utterly simple, but because it is, but most of us are in such a rush. And I particularly like to do breathing while I'm looking at something in nature. And I breathe in beauty. So that's another thing. Costs no money. All you got to do is look at something natural. Because nature has, it's all about sacred geometry and perfection. And look at a flower, look at a tree, look at the sky, and breathe for 1 minute, because this evolution revolution is happening one person at a time. And my closing words are, we are all in this together. So let us go forward with compassion for ourselves and for each other and do the best we can. And this is so that we can be living in a paradise on earth.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So, as you guys know, I like to take notes, and I made a list of some points from our conversation today. I'm going to read them to you. And I'm going to try to list all the books we talk about moving forward, because I realized today, like, we throw them out during the chat, but wouldn't it be nice to kind of hear a summary of them at the end? So I caught 4 today. I probably missed some, but moving forward, I'll try to make sure I'm more efficient with it. So in summary, we live in a trauma-based society, and we need to learn how to love ourselves and communicate with others. Listening is something that we need to work on, really hearing other people and hearing them in a way that brings value to their experience and their emotions, and understanding our own value for our own emotional experience. We are all mirrors. We're all reflections of one another. Angel and I have been talking about this, manifestations of each other, right? So pay attention to that. What is being mirrored back to you? That's information that is very valuable. And listen to it, watch it, see it. Working on self-knowledge, really understanding ourselves, and creating personal rituals so that you can really find peace in this chaotic world. The 4 books that I heard mentioned throughout this call were Venus and Her Lover by our beautiful guest, Becca. I also saw that you have an oracle deck, but it was out of stock on Amazon. Is there somewhere that people can buy that?
On my website, venusandherlover.com.
Okay. venusandherlover.com. I'm getting the oracle deck. Another book, Loving What Is by Byron Katie. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, and How Emotions Are Made. And I didn't write down the author's name on that, but all of those links did get posted into the conversation. So, wow, what an amazing conversation. I can tell by the energy in the room that, like, we could probably go for another hour if we really wanted to. This was so neat. I feel like we got both deep and broad. If you guys are loving this conversation as much as I am, and as much as I can see the faces that are live with us are, be sure to come to Anarchapulco and check out Becca. She's going to be at our pre-event retreat. Tickets are available on anarchapulco.com. I'll be teaching a workshop there as well, actually on emotions and using plant essences to help you get them into alignment. It's a passion of mine. I ended my anxiety attacks with lavender. So rewired my brain. Really proud of that, actually. It was really hard work, but I figured it out. Biohacking. She's also going to be on the Love and Healing panel on the main stage, which I encourage you to check out. And she is available for one-on-ones. So, hit up Becca and see what you can do to get some consultation. I have some friends who have done couples therapy with her. I have watched her in action with group mediation. And I am telling you, if you are experiencing interpersonal conflict, Becca is the woman to turn to for help. Now, if you guys keep an eye on our website, very soon we are going to be announcing all of the workshops that are taking place on all of the stages. And this is one of my most favorite and most exciting parts of Anarchapulco. This is when you get to really dive deep with your speakers. So stay tuned to the website. Next week, we are doing another variation on our theme. We have another speaker coming on. So this is going to be another feature for one of our speakers. And we have Christoph Melzjadek. And I am so excited about him. Last year on the Health and Wellness stage, he packed the room, standing room only, shoulders to the wall. I mean, it was loaded in there. This guy is incredible. He is a spiritual architect, and he's helping to get anarchists to a higher intention and the process of personal evolution, helping people go through that process. We've talked about that tonight. That is our theme for 2020's event, is evolving. And I love it because I was born out of the Ron Paul revolution. But looking back in hindsight, I don't want to revolve back to that. I'm done being angry. I'm moving on. I'm elevating. I'm evolving. And I'm so excited to do it side by side with all of you. So with that being said, book your tickets today. Prices are going up tomorrow, so pay attention to that. We've got live stream tickets. We've got video tickets. Now's the time to get in where you fit in. Okay. We got hotel rooms. I love staying in the hotel on site. I have done this both ways. I've stayed in a condo off site. I've stayed in the hotel on site. It is worth it to stay on site if you are able to, because there's nothing like waking up in the morning and going down the elevator to breakfast with fellow anarchists right there by your side. The speakers are in the hotel. You get the opportunity to really rub shoulders with these fantastic evolving souls. You can pick their brain. You can have lunch with them. I know David and I had a meal with Dr. Buckley last year, and that was one of my favorite moments from all of Anarchapulco, like seeing the two of you meet each other and just, woo, this fire was born. And I was sitting there like, ooh, this is amazing. So these are the types of personalities that are coming together at this event. It is so special. And we get a little taste of that here on Conversations in Anarchy. And I am so grateful that you all are participating in this with us. Now, we've already announced our speakers for the main stage, for the Dollar Vigilante, for Health and Wellness, for Family Camp. This stuff's coming out. It's available on our website. And if you are not on the email list, I highly encourage you. We are sending out regular emails, and they have exclusive information that isn't on the blog. You can't find it anywhere else. And some of that includes our chat histories here from Conversations in Anarchy. So if you are registered on the Zoom, you're going to get access to that. So that's kind of two different lists, actually. You want to register on the Zoom, go to anarchapulco.com/Zoom, sign up for the series if you're watching us on Facebook or Twitch or D Live, wherever you are. And this allows you to actually log into Zoom, turn on your camera, hopefully. If not, that's okay, and participate in the chat and really get to be a part of the conversation. We've got the email list. We've got the blog. There's all sorts of great information on the website, what to expect, frequently asked questions, all sorts of stuff. We have Living Anarchy posts. We have event updates, all sorts of fantastic stuff going up. And it is not too late for you to become an affiliate of Anarchapulco. If you are talking about this event as much as I am, it is worth it to sign up as an affiliate. Your friends and family get 10% off. You get a nice little bonus. And I'm going to tell you, I've had multiple people in the past 24 hours message me and say, hey, do you have that link? I've decided I want to go. And people are making decisions right now about attending Anarchapulco. So it is still a good time to become an affiliate and to encourage your friends and family to come. This is the moment. So again, next week, next Tuesday, we're going to be right here, same time, same place. I think we only have 2 more episodes before the real life event is taking place, which I feel kind of bittersweet about that because I love our Tuesdays together, but we get to do it in real life, which is even better, right? We're going to have Christoph on next week. So I look really excited. I am really excited about that. And I just feel so blessed today to have participated in this conversation, to have gotten to witness Becca and all of your glory and really just learn more about you and really get to see the expansiveness of your knowledge and your expertise. I am so grateful for you joining us. I know that the whole team here is grateful for every single one of you who participates. You guys mean the world to us. This is why we do this. It is for moments like these. And since we've been talking about feelings today, I just want to say that I am feeling really happy and really, really grateful. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of Conversations in Anarchy. Check out our website, anarchapulco.com, for tickets, for blogs, for speaker bios, and to be in touch with everybody. We love you so much. Peace, love, and anarchy.
Anarchapulco is so hype, I'm trying to tell ya. This the event of the year and best vacation ever. Ron Potter, Jeffrey Tucker, just to name a few. Get your tickets, you don't want to miss it. You should roll through. Talking politics to health and self-improvement to investing. So many things, not one thing. Learn how to live life unchained, yeah. 4 days vibing on the beach, time to connect. All about growth, way more than a conference. This is Anarchapulco, yeah. Let's go.
You ain't seen nothing yet.